PS Singoe, my fellow Kenyans, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is with great honor and pleasure that I welcome you today to this public stakeholders validation forum of our foreign policy document. I thank you all for responding to our invitation and making time to be here. The Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs has had a series of engagements with diverse stakeholders as part of the process of reviewing Kenya's 2014 foreign policy document. The objective is to broaden and deepen our reach to Kenyans and make a foreign policy that reflects the aspirations of our nation. Looking back, our foreign policy has been detached, mysterious, and closed to the public, making it actually foreign to Kenyans. We have decided to break from this past situation and take foreign policy to the people to ensure that we move along with Kenyans in our diplomatic engagements. After all, public participation is a fundamental principle of Kenya's democratic governance and is enshrined in our country's constitution. In this review process, more than before, we have held several roundtable discussions and consultations with a wide range of stakeholders, including government ministries, departments and agencies, civil society organizations, media, academicians, ambassadors and high commissioners, the Council of Governors, Parliament, youth, judiciary, among others. Indeed, this is a foreign policy of the Republic of Kenya, and therefore should be anchored on broadened ownership, which includes all arms of government, the county governments, and most important, Kenyan citizens. Your presence here today marks a major milestone towards the climax of the review process of our foreign policy. We look forward to your input in firming up this foreign policy document after today's public validation exercise. There shall follow a high-level retreat with His Excellency the President, William Ruto, to finalize the process. Notably, this is the first time in our history that the foreign policy review and development process will culminate in a sessional paper that will be tabled in Parliament for deliberations. This will further widen the avenue for public input through elected representatives. There is also need for consequential amendments to the Foreign Service Act of 2021 to make it fit for purpose in the mutating geopolitical landscape and the pressing diplomatic realities of our time. Additionally, the pursuit of national interests in the international arena has operational costs. Thus, the sessional paper shall aim at drawing Parliament's attention to the cost implications of our foreign policy formulation and implementation. The growing returns from our diplomatic engagements justify the need to increase the budgetary allocation for the Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs. We are grateful to our President, His Excellency William Ruto, as he continues to set pace as Kenya's chief diplomat, by actively engaging in strategic diplomatic activities. Accordingly, Kenya has been able to sign mutually beneficial agreements in order to expand trade opportunities for our people, diversify creative economy prospects, and secure labor mobility agreements to address youth unemployment. Further, our country has received more international scholarships, seen a rise in public-private partnerships that are spurring infrastructural development in Kenya, and increased international engagements that flourish tourism and guarantee our peace and security, among others. Ladies and gentlemen, the ultimate goal of a country's foreign policy is to provide a blueprint and a strategy for achieving its national interests in line with the common good of the nation and shared prosperity. Therefore, the Kenya public has a frontline role in contributing to the formulation and implementation of foreign policy. This, I repeat, is the reason we are all gathered here today. Just as a reflection, what is the role of citizens in appreciating and promoting our country's national interests whenever our people interact with the international environment? How can we utilize our foreign policy to inculcate in our people patriotism and a fervent desire to positively project our country's image in the international arena? In short, we must close the missing link between the country's foreign policy and the citizens' understanding and engagement in our international affairs. In conclusion, I encourage you to have a candid discussion and an in-depth interrogation of the document to ensure that the final product of this foreign policy review process captures the perspectives and wishes of Kenyan citizens. Before I step off the podium, let me also appreciate our partners, the UNHCR, CONRAD, the Stockholm Environmental Institute, the Council of the New Global South, and the other that may not be on this list, but who have supported us in one way or the other, including our ambassadors emeritus, who were part of this very, very important journey. So, here we are. Please speak frankly. Let us hear you out. Foreign policy is a critical public good, but it's also very elusive, and we must find some common ground. Not too long ago, young people in Kenya were asking, why does the President of Kenya make foreign trips? Maybe an answer may be found here today. We also are facing interesting challenges. I am a politician, and sometimes you are inclined to try and imagine that your wish or your desire coincides with national good, and sometimes they may be at variance. But there are critical issues that we must deal with. For instance, how can we motivate our foreign service? What can we do to anchor good men and women out there as they work? What is a professional foreign service? Do we play the traditional game of you ignore the career foreign service, trained diplomats, and then fill the foreign service with villagers from Mululu, where I was born? Should we, as a Kenyan people, maybe now decide whether we need to have a ratio of proportionality, so that to what extent do we work with the trained people, and to what extent do we infuse some new blood into a foreign service? This kind of balance, we've never quite talked about it as Kenyans. Perhaps this is an opportunity. I was in Parliament a few weeks ago answering questions, and I'll not name the person, but he's a senator, and he told me, Mr. Minister, can you tell me or assure this House that our diplomatic service reflects the face of Kenya? And can you name a high-level diplomat from my area? I was extremely worried. I was sitting on the edge. Because that is a question we must answer and resolve today. Does our foreign service reflect the face of Kenya? How does it play out on matters gender? Does it? Now, if you want to go forward, how do we build on our consultations and find answers and practices that can be more appropriate for our people? When I talk of the budget that will go as a comment that goes into the sessional paper, what happens when you do not resource a foreign service? Do you compromise a nation? Is the security of a nation under threat? Are the national interests under threat? So these are the kind of issues that I really want you good men and women to help us interrogate, so that we can come up with good solutions. The global trends, as you've heard, are changing. We take pride in Kenya as hosting the UN system here, the largest in the global south. Today, we also take pride that Kenya is host to the largest World Bank office outside Washington. How do we leverage on that to consolidate Kenya's position as a financial hub? And from there, springboard into providing very supportive engagements for our neighbors. So a good balance again between those kind of conversations and what we are doing, I think, and many others, will really help us to handle our foreign policy. And perhaps you could also tell us where you think we have been ambiguous and we need clarity. Let it come from the citizenry that they need clarity on certain fundamental issues. Maybe this is the moment. But most important, let us all now develop a foreign policy that is Kenyan. I'm not saying that we've never had a policy. We've had it. It was even documented, as you can hear. But the new areas that we must chart is that the Constitution is very clear about public participation, public engagement, and broadening ownership. That was not there in the past, but our new Constitution demands that. The 2010 Constitution, they say it is transformative. If you are to ask me, can you run away from the civil society? I think it's not possible anymore. If you look at the anchor around the Constitution of 2010, there was a very strong input from the civil society. So we are living in these new times, and it is absolutely important that we recognize that they're new players. Even in football, we have a season when there's Pele, then we had the Messis of this world, and now we are looking forward to seeing other players in the arena. So in this foreign space, foreign policy space, let us also crystallize on what is the gem for Kenya and how do we move forward and keep our profile where it should be. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and I wish you extremely successful deliberations, and we look forward to your inputs. Thank you so much.